If you're high in the CliftonStrengths theme of ideation, you've probably been told one of two things. Either your head's up in the clouds, or you can see things in a way that no one else can. You've probably also felt this experience of being able to see connections without anyone else understanding what you're trying to say. And I want to show you how the Bible can maximize and encourage this strength. This is episode 4 of a biblical look at every CliftonStrengths theme. Today, looking at ideation. Gallup describes someone high in the ideation theme as being fascinated by ideas, concepts, and explanations for things. They get a jolt of energy whenever they find a new idea or see a new perspective. Making these connections is what this idea is all about. This theme of ideation is about connecting unconnected things, seeing disparate phenomena and just putting them together and seeing how they relate. So, how do you make the most out of this strength? Have you ever worked out without warming up? Or tried to play a sport for the first time? Think about throwing a football or a baseball or shooting a basketball when you don't know how. It's almost impossible and at the very least awkward. I can remember the first time I tried to play basketball. I was kind of athletic as a kid, but the first time I tried to play, I didn't really even know where to put my hands on the ball. And you did the classic two hands shoving the ball towards the goal and basically just praying that it goes in. You don't know how to get the ball from point A to point B, where your hands go, how to throw it or shoot it, and you especially don't know how to get it into the receiver's hands or the net. If you're high in ideation, you basically have to practice using this theme. Even if you're really high in ideation, you have to practice. Because this is one of those themes where seeing something that's so connected that other people can't see requires the ability to explain that connection. Because for you, you'll just be able to see it, but other people won't, and you'll need to get that idea across to them. Practicing this theme actually also has a secondary benefit, which is that it teaches you how to lean on other people with strengths that you may not have in order to fully allow their strength to flourish. So we can look in Exodus, chapter 17, whenever the Israelites are fighting the Amalekites. Basically what's going on is Moses is there leading them and Joshua is leading them into battle. And what's happening is that whenever Moses raises his hands, Israel starts winning. And when he lowers his hands, the Amalekites start winning. And this goes on for some time and Moses starts to get tired. So what happens, they bring him a stone, he sits down, that helps a little bit, but then Aaron and Hur have to hold his hands up. They help him. He's leaning on them, quite literally, with his elbows so that Israel can win. And they end up defeating the Amalekites because of this effort, because of Moses' humility to lean on someone else in his need. We can also look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4, specifically starting in verse 9. This chapter is looking at evil under the sun, but in verse 9, he's looking at one versus two people, basically having a group of people together, what that does, what kind of strength you can have gain whenever you're working together. And two people can lean on each other. If one falls, the other can pick them up, and they can stay warm together in the cold. If you're just by yourself, it's very difficult to pick yourself back up or to stay warm. The point here is that being able to lean on someone else's strengths can help your ideation theme flourish all the more. And specifically, when we look at practicing or training, we can see Romans 12, talking about the spiritual renewing of your mind, being transformed and not conforming to this world. Now, spiritually, that has kind of another meaning, but in the day-to-day life of living, this is kind of illustrating how that transformation's over time. It's through continual training and practice. And that's both spiritually and physically and in other things, right? If we think about with our strengths, our personality strengths, practicing those things, training those things, building them up like a muscle, it's a gradual transformation. And we see the same theme in 1 Corinthians, talking about how athletes work. Many people run a race, but only one win it. And so you should run as though to win. And now athletes exercise their bodies and train themselves in order to win a worldly prize. And what Paul's talking about here is how we train ourselves for a very different type of prize, a spiritual prize in Jesus. But the idea here of that training in order to achieve this goal, obtain this glory, it works for strengths too. You should train constantly in order to maximize your potential spiritually, physically, and in your strengths, specifically in your ideation. And lastly, we can look at Proverbs 22, specifically down in verse 29. Here it talks about a person who is highly skilled and how that person stands in front of kings. And the implication here is that skill, which requires repeated practice over and over, is better than talent on its own. Becoming skilled in something will supersede whatever kind of talent might be underlying it. The talent will just give you kind of an inclination for what direction that skill should go in. But what about people who aren't very high in ideation? We have to interact with them, and that's where the practice helps, but they're not going to have as much of a tolerance for big pie-in-the-sky ideas and connections. And this is why I think that the ideation strength is one of the most exponential of the CliftonStrengths, where the higher it is, the increasingly high amount of output you get of it. And so what that means is it's your responsibility, if you're high in ideation, to have discretion in sharing those crazy connections that you're seeing. Think about it like this. If you're at lunch somewhere and you see your friend has a new watch, or maybe a coworker, let's say, has a new watch, and it reminds you of how difficult it was to build the Golden Gate Bridge, or maybe the restaurant you're in for this work meeting, the color palette reminds you of the smell of a new book. Well, that might be more interesting than it is valuable whenever you're at lunch to discuss the financial plan for Q3. But listening to a friend's story and being able to relate very deeply because it feels exactly like something you've lived before, or being able to help with someone's problem because it kind of has that same vibe as whenever you moved to a new city, or being able to spot a small little improvement in an Excel spreadsheet or a tool or a product line at work, that is valuable. Knowing when to share these big ideas is the power of ideation. But sharing at the wrong time can really just harm the credibility of this strength. And so we can look at Genesis 41. Joseph has been sold into slavery. He's in Egypt and he was in prison for a long time. And then he gets brought into Pharaoh's throne room. Pharaoh has had a lot of people trying to interpret these weird dreams he's had with 7 big cows and 7 ears of corn and what it actually means. And no one's really given him a good answer. Joseph comes in and he knows that visions like this are from God. And so using discretion, he makes these connections between what God is trying to show Pharaoh. And it's a very satisfying answer because the first part of what it is 7 years of prosperity. And I think Pharaoh, in his short-mindedness and hardness of heart, ignores the second half, which is 7 years of not so good times. But the point is that Joseph exercises discretion. He attributes the dreams to God immediately for Pharaoh, and then explains them in a way that Pharaoh will understand and appreciate. He kind of, in a sense, tailors the ability of connecting these dreams to reality to a way that his audience will fully be able to appreciate and understand. Further, we can go just to the book of Matthew, the whole thing. Matthew consistently uncovers deep unity within Scripture, from his genealogy tying Adam all the way to Jesus, to connecting all the prophets to Jesus through Hosea, Nehemiah, etc., and then comparing Jesus' story and his life to Moses himself. Matthew knows that this kind of connection will sit very deeply with his audience, and presenting it in that way makes him a very effective communicator of these complex ideas. He sees this connection, but making sure that the people that need to hear it can hear it is just as important as seeing the connection in the first place. So don't be scared of big ideas. These crazy connections that you're able to see are the strength of ideation. You might feel misunderstood, perhaps often or easily or both. And that might make you feel pressure to live up to some kind of expectation of someone who can see these ideas at all. And what it is that an untrained ability to explain them will leave you and your listener frustrated. And it could even leave you feeling embarrassed for having this strength, which you shouldn't. It's powerful, but it's very scary to see an idea and have no idea how to communicate it. And these like wisps of connections just kind of flutter into your mind, and there might just not be enough information there at first to communicate a concrete idea. And that's okay. See, ideation is a powerful gift, and it can be used to present new concepts and change people's minds and show new perspectives that no one's ever seen before. But just like any other gift, it can be corrupted by sin. Anger can twist it so that way it's used to dig deep into someone's insecurities and harm them. Or fear can color it to where it distracts you. and gives you these new ideas that feel better than good ideas, even though they're not. And the invitation of Scripture isn't to push big ideas away. It's actually to lean into them and to give them to Christ so that He can lead you to further develop that strength and use it to do what it's supposed to do, which is glorify Him. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, the magical YouTube algorithm knows you'll like these as well. And subscribe up here. Thanks.